Viewers, I can just share the screen if you want, and then I can start when you're ready. Right. All right. Are you able to see my screen, and then should I start?
As for me, I can be able to see it perfectly fine. I don't know others.
Okay.
It's okay, thanks.
Okay,
Perfect.
thanks. You can see the
Perfect.
screen.
Perfect. Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Darren. I'll be taking this next session. Thank you, Bright, for the opportunity for this. Really appreciate it. So there is, I suppose you've been in the conference for a while. There is the chat option. Hi everyone. I've just made a note in there. So while I'm presenting, if you have any questions, please feel free just to drop them into the chat area. And either I'll answer them straight away, happy to do that, or I might just wait until a little bit later on in the presentation because I might answer it a bit later on. So please feel free as we go just to send your questions there, to chat, to make comments. I'm all good with that. That's great. Okay, so my name is Darren. I'm talking today on, I think I have, sorry, on the future of employment. It shouldn't be that. I'm going to have to get a different slide presentation. Sorry, this is for the agriculture. And it seems like it's showing the wrong one. That's a problem. Oh, this is oh, okay. I'm going to stop sharing for a few moments. It seems that my technology has hurt me. Give me a second. Sorry about this. Here, got it. Whew. Damn. Share screen. Okay. All right. Whew. Okay. So today we're talking about staying ahead of change and potential skills that are needed for the agricultural space. And it's an interesting discussion. So agriculture tends to bring some very interesting pictures to mind. So pictures of kind of cornfields and rice fields and massive open spaces that drive agriculture, food and stuff for the country or even for the continent. And the interesting thing about agriculture is that it's actually quite a big back end behind it. Quite a big infrastructure of required services, I suppose, to get it from plant to plate, as they would talk about. So this discussion is talking today around about AI, a bit about artificial intelligence, some of the skills that might be needed for agriculture, and some of the thinking that would go ahead with regards to how do we prepare ourselves for those skills, and how do you prepare your teams and your staff or your employees or even your future employees that aren't your employees yet for what's coming. And this is kind of the exploration today and what I'll be talking around. So agriculture is probably, if not the most, I believe it's one of the most needed industries of the future. I don't believe people in the world should be starving. I think there's enough land, arable land, enough space for people to be growing enough, for there to be enough food for everyone, The problem is that it gets filtered into massive conglomerates or massive sales stores. And then what happens is people have to get to the store, and there's massive bottlenecks. So a lot of the food that gets generated doesn't get to the people on the other side because of these two convergent bottlenecks. And I think that the shift in mindset is very much, it's not a new shift, but it's very much a need around the subsistence farming, around the opportunity for complexes to grow their own food in excess areas or space in the complex. That gets open to everyone. You take a country like Sweden, and then you get Denmark, and what some of their areas are doing on the streets, on the sidewalks, is they've opened up those sidewalks for growing crops, food, different types of crops, different types of herbs, and different types of potatoes and that kind of stuff, and it's all free to everyone in the area. So as you walk past, you can pick an apple off a tree, or you can pick some potatoes or stuff like that, which is starting to feed the nation without having to go out to the bigger players who then bring food into the major retail stores. This is all part of the future, I believe, and it's a way that we can actually start feeding the nations. So let's carry on. The first thing I want to talk about is this thing called artificial intelligence. It's quite interesting, this thing, AI, or machine intelligence. There seems to be quite a massive disconnect or misunderstanding about what it is, and what does it mean for robots, and how does it come into the future, and kind of that's around what my discussion is today, so we can start thinking about how to hone our skills and what learning we should do for the future. So AI, which is sometimes called machine intelligence, is intelligence demonstrated by machines, unlike natural intelligence displayed by humans and animals. So basically, humans have this thing called intelligence, which is when we're born, born into a family, sometimes with a single mom and dad, or mom and dad, or sometimes brothers and sisters, sometimes not, sometimes the community, and we build an intelligence around that, the way the community does things, the way the family does things. And in building these and this intelligence, we start fitting into society, and society starts fitting into a global picture. Now, that intelligence is taught intelligence. So we're not just, kids aren't born naturally speaking, and they're not born naturally being able to have conversations. Then you turn 35 or 40 years of age, and it doesn't mean that you can have good conversations either. So we have this very interesting world of intelligence that sometimes is not really measured as intelligence. And I've often heard the saying, common sense is not so common. So what's happening at the moment is the machines, computers, technology, when you use Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or Google or anything online, what's happening is that's feeding data back to a bigger mainframe, and that mainframe is learning from that data. So it's teaching itself, and it's becoming more intelligent, because it's becoming intelligent based on the data that's provided. Just like a child becomes intelligent on the data it's provided. So your prejudices aren't born, you aren't born with prejudices. Your prejudice is based on an intelligence that you get taught to have. And so it grows and so it expands. The difference between a machine intelligence and human intelligence is not much, because what you feed the machine is what the machine will tend to believe, because it believes in what it's fed, and then it will then spit out results based on what it's fed. Now, AI is growing. It's definitely in the future. It's here at the moment. It's a huge growth. But what the experience is as new technologies are implemented, right now, the AI is not smart enough for the need of the human, but the humans aren't smart enough on how to use the technology. So there's a bit of an interesting gap going on there at the moment. It's quite intriguing. Now, what this now means is that as AI comes in, it will start impacting jobs, but we need to start developing our people and ourselves to be able to use the technology to enable the growth. Okay, so 7 impacts of AI into the future would be: 1 is voice-based search is on the rise. So what it means is people starting to use their phone. Hi Siri, hi Cortana, hi Alicia, the Amazon one. It'll come to you in a moment. So we're starting to be able to talk to our phones and our mobile devices, which means that they are able to talk back to us. And this is building further machine intelligence, but less typing is required. It's a major impact of AI on our technology moving forward. Another big impact is the 24/7 availability. So if you have ever had to go to a bank, the craziest thing about banks, about the licensing department, about Vodacom and MTN provision is that they all open 8 to 5. Now, most people who use their products are at work from 8 to 5. So to be able to get to the store, it's kind of impossible because you're working 8 to 5. They open 8 to 5, it all falls down. Now, AI technology enables a 24-hour, 7 days a week initiative. So it's no longer about the workers or the engagers, it's about the technology that takes on the lower roles. And I'll show you in the next slide some of the roles that are being created that people are questioning around who's going to take what jobs. And it's an interesting scenario. And that's why when it comes to ordering and manufacturing and procurement, the quicker your stuff moves online, the more you'll be able to order, the bigger footprint you'll be able to increase. Okay, the next one is improved user experience. And this is a big drive. So as a technological company where we play in technology and learning, the user experience is key. It doesn't matter how good you think your platform is. If the user experience is poor, that would be the level of your platform. So, I mean, we have things where you click a next button, but people aren't looking for next, they're looking for forward or move on, and so they get kind of stuck in that. And even in agriculture, there will be a culture in the agricultural space of the way things get done and how things roll out. I remember talking to a massive provider of learning who won a massive contract, and what they did was they went and set up a whole bunch of e-learning shacks or containers in the fields of harvesters and laborers to go and do e-learning. The problem is they don't have the time to go do e-learning. The experience is very poor. They don't understand the language that learning was offered in, so the whole thing fell down. It's the same as if you're going to go into ordering, or if you go into stores, or if you go into, the user experience is what's going to drive the future of engagement, because technology does allow for that. Reduced areas. So the thing about technology is driven on a rule that you put in place. If the rule's in place, that's what it's looking for. Now, bring the human bypasses the rules because they can't wait or solve scenarios, and that's where errors are experienced. And in some industries, like in the insurance industry in South Africa, when the bank pays out insurance, when the insurer pays out insurance to fix roofs, for example, 70% of that insurance money has to be redone, because although they pay it out, they've got poor skilled people fixing the roofs, they mess it up, and then it's not done, so they have to double the payment. Where it comes down to AI and technology, it will decrease those areas, which decreases those costs. Increase in speed. So you take digital printing at the moment, they're printing houses, literally they're printing houses with bricks and mortar. That carries on as usual, but instead of taking a month to build, it builds it in 3 days, same house, uses less bricks, uses less mortar, uses less mistakes, puts the house up. So very intriguing space. So technology is doing in terms of increased speed. Technology also takes on the task of dangerous tasks. So some of the overseas countries, first world countries, are using drones as firefighters up to level. So instead of the ladder going down and the firefighters climbing the ladder, the drone goes up and sprays, puts a fire out on the 15th floor, 20th floor, and then other drones are coming to catch the people to bring them down. So you don't have to bring people down ladders anymore. The drone picks up the person and brings it down to the ground, and that's been driven by a drone driver. So these dangerous tasks will be taken on more and more by AI and technology into the future. The proliferation, I suppose, what an interesting word. It's the explosion of medical apps. So medical apps are being absolutely exploded all over the world. It's becoming such a big thing. The medical world, the mass farmer and stuff like that. So what's happening if you have like an Apple or Samsung phone, you look on your phone, they've already put a COVID-19 app on there, whether you like it or not, it's there, so you can track yourself. So so there's a whole bunch of tracking going on around medical, and if you're going to be a whole integrated system around which doctor rated you, gave you which medicines for what reason, and how the whole thing rolls out. We started working with a client that are currently doing vending machines, like you vend Coke and Pepsi and those kind of drinks at the machine. They're vending medicine. So what would happen is you would go to your doctor, they'll prescribe you a medicine, they'll put that medicine into a machine in your local Pick and Pay or your local food store. You'd go in, you put in your ID number and the password, whatever it is, and it would give you your local meds. Now, what's happening in that is on the machines, they're doing a plant to medicine, a plant to a whole process of, this was the plant that was cut down, that was sent to this pharmaceutical company, that was sent to this lab, sent to this, made there, and you can track all the growth of where your pill came from. So you can see it end to end. So while you're waiting for your pill to dispense, it will, on the machine, it's going to show you that video. This is what's going on in the world of technology and the rise of AI. So it's got some very, very good things coming. But of course, the question is, what skills do you need for that? Are you ready for that? And how do you ready your people for that? Which we'll talk through a little bit more in just a moment. Okay, so don't forget, if you want to ask questions, chat room. There, I believe, so this is not only my belief system. This is kind of from research that they feel there's going to be 3 waves of AI adoption. Okay, so what's called the first wave is the algorithmic wave, and that's the wave we're currently in, and that moves through into the early 2020. Then there'll be the wave of augmentation, which will be the late 20s, and then there'll be the wave of autonomous, which will be mid-30s, 2030s. So these waves are quite important to understand, because technology cannot do everything that everyone says it can do at the moment. And if anybody says to you they have an end-to-end solution, they're not telling the truth. The end-to-end solution pretty much doesn't exist on anything at the moment. Everything is plugins, and people are trying to work out how to put it together and what should we do. And what I've come to learn is, as we roll out technology into the communities in which we work, and kind of especially in the learning space, we are learning so much about how people consume the technology, how they consume the content, how do they consume what it is, how do they make it work, and how do we upskill people out of the task into managing the task rather than doing the task. So like the example with those drone firefighters, the firefighters themselves aren't going to be running up the ladders, but they're going to learn how to manage drones. They're going to learn how to move drones around, and that comes with the current the algorithmic wave of artificial intelligence, until it becomes augmented and autonomous when the drones can do it themselves. So everyone will be learning through that place. So level 1 algorithmic wave is pretty much automation of simple computer tasks and an analysis of structured data. So this is predominantly going to affect the recruitment industry, the financial sector, because a lot of that is pretty much standard process. If you do this, then do that. If you do this, then do that. It doesn't require a lot of analytical ability. It doesn't require a lot of focused ability. It requires structure in terms of tasks. So if you're going to do recruitment, add your CV, review the CV, do this, do that, place the learner. That's the process, and that's what we're in. That's why we still need a lot of humans to be able to use the technology to analyze the CV. So, prime example, just because you use technology doesn't mean you've defined how to use the technology or what the outcome of the action needs to be. It's a mess. I'll give you an example. In the learning space, you get to do a written exam. Great, we can do it online. Then you go and it tells you must go out into the field and sell a product. Nothing assesses how to sell a product. It's just go and sell a product. And that's easy when there's no technology. But as soon as you're recording yourself and you're selling a product and someone's watching you, you need the criteria as to what selling a product must look like and how you must do it. And that's the missing link at the moment. And this is where the algorithmic wave is not focused on. Algorithmic wave is only focused on the process of selling the product. This will start merging probably around about 2024, 2025, when it moves into the augmentation wave, because the machines are learning at the moment. They're growing their intelligence on the way we do things, in the processes in which things are done. Plant to plate, for example. What's the entire process? You know, the plant gets planted, wait for it to grow, it's got to be watered, it's got to have X amount of nutrients, etc., etc. The soil's got to be a certain level, process. That thing gets harvested and put into a truck. The truck gets taken to a factory. The factory converts it to a product. The product gets shipped to a store. Okay, that process is what's algorithmic wave. Okay, augmented wave will be, okay, how do we now take some of those processes and speed them up, because maybe we can go straight from planting to store rather than to factory or to what have you. And what would that look like? And this is what the machines will start helping us with. This is all about, this will start taking over clerical support jobs. It'll start taking over call center jobs. It'll start taking over those kind of tasks, because it's moving more into a augmented, a dual role of engagement. And that then, of course, links to an end user experience at the end. In the third wave, which is autonomous wave, which is mid-30s, that's where we'll see a whole bunch of robots coming that are more taking over more your physical labor, your manual dexterity, problem solving in real world situations. So for the next 15 years, 10 to 15 years, there's going to be this learning curve going on, and it'll never stop learning, but learning curve going on. And the more managerial jobs will start falling away. The more process-driven jobs will start falling away first in that order, I believe, and then we'll get to the manual jobs. Things like autonomous cars and autonomous trucks, that would be kind of more in your augmented stage for now, rather than your autonomous wave. Just like we've gone from petrol to electric cars, there's that hybrid vehicle. It's the process of, it's kind of the way it's going to go, I believe. And a lot of the research is showing us. Now, it's important to note that there's something called Moore's Law. And Moore's Law is a computer guy, and he says that technology, the speed that technology rates itself at the moment, will double itself every 18 months. So technology is getting faster and faster. It's doubling itself every 18 months, which means that, and this was from the late 80s, he started working here. So if you go from 1990 to halfway through 1991, if the speed of technology was 1, it was now 2. Halfway through 1991 to 1993, it would go from 2 to 4. 93 to 94 and a half, it'll go to 8. 4 and a half, 94 and a half to 96, it goes to 16. That's what I mean, and it's doubling itself at the speed. So it's getting exponentially faster. And that's why the machine learning will be exponentially faster, which means that these waves might happen quicker, but yeah, no one's actually quite sure. Okay. So, next one. This is the impact. This is the proposed impact of existing jobs at potential risk of automation speed. So, wave 1 in the early 2020s, where we are, they predict that there will be so there's the percentages, there's the waves. So, men, about 3% of men are going to lose their jobs. About 5% of women will lose their jobs. And overall, about 4.5% of people will lose their jobs in the mid-20s. So from now until about kind of 26, 27, are going to lose the jobs that currently exist. All right. I'm not talking about the new jobs that are coming. I'm talking about the jobs that currently exist, because this was what technology will start taking over. And that's what the AI is about. In the late 20s, kind of 2027 onward to like mid 30s, you will see more and more men. So it'll go from about 3% of men to about 15 or 16% of men will lose their jobs, from about 5% of women to about 25% of women will lose their jobs. So overall about 20%. And then into wave 3, which is the late 30s, you're going to see a more increased men. About 35% of jobs will go, 25% of women, and it's an overall about 30% of people, and that's going to lose the current jobs. So these are automation of the different jobs that can be automated, as I spoke about earlier, how they get automated, and what they'll do. There is a huge growth of new jobs coming, which I'll speak about in a moment, but this is what you can expect in terms of job loss. Job loss is not a problem. Job loss is about growth. Job loss is about creating new opportunities. So as the job loss is generally comes out of the big corporates because they're the ones with all the jobs. But as you lose jobs at the corporates, as they go leaner, it opens up a whole new market for jobs that are desperately needed. So to feed a nation, you need a nation to be growing food. You can't just rely on the massive conglomerates for food anymore. You're going to have to start creating that yourself, which is a massive opportunity to get food to people. And we will definitely see a whole new wave of bartering coming through where money itself is going to become less and less important, and the opportunity to engage with each other is going to become more and more important. So Fred the farmer is going to need Darren the developer to develop content or develop systems for him. So he'll feed Darren and his family, so Darren can develop stuff for him. And so that kind of a bartering is going to take place, I believe. Not exactly sure how, but I believe that's going to start coming pretty soon, especially with the kids coming out of schools. The education system is no longer providing for the needs that we have, because the education system was created in the late 1800s, well, kind of from the Prussian system for a specific reason of the Industrial Revolution. We're now sitting in the Social Revolution, so it's gone from Industrial Revolution, it's gone into Knowledge Revolution, Technological Revolution, and now we're sitting in a Social Revolution, and the next revolution that'll come from that will probably be an engagement revolution, I believe. Education is still stuck in the Industrial Revolution format that just paint the school walls different color and make the desks circles. Doesn't really help what business and what industry is looking for at the moment. And it's why you often hear, I really want someone with a qualification, but the qualification really can't do what I'm looking for, and I've got to retrain them. So big corporates like Siemens and stuff in certain parts of the world stopped hiring graduates, created their own apprenticeship program, started hiring high school students into their graduate program so that they could get a qualification through Siemens, not through a tertiary education, kind of tertiary education institute. Now, this is all this shift that's moving over the next 10 or 15 years that's coming, which leads the question then, well, what skills do we need? Because if that's coming, well, how do we know who to recruit? How do we know how to do business? And that's part of the searching answer that everyone's looking for. Okay. So in saying that, I want to talk, there's things where we are in a digital transformation. It's not coming, it's here, it's upon us, it's what's happening, it's in most countries of the world. And that is using the digital technologies to create new or change existing business processes, culture, and customer experiences to take advantage of changing business and market requirements. So it's pretty cool. Digital transformation is just going, well, here's the market requirement. People need access to that market. How can digital technology help to get there, if it can at all? So it will be impossible to get a crop of corn into a warehouse without a truck. So the truck needs to be the digital transformation, because a computer screen is not going to, you can't put it through a computer screen yet, maybe in the future, but not now. So basically the digital transformation is don't change what doesn't need to be changed. If something needs to be changed, change it so that it impacts the end user, because then it creates the need for the supplier. And then if the technology doesn't exist, create it. So more and more technology is being created, and more technology is dying. So it's being created and dying, created, dying, because the entire technological world is shifting so quickly. To put it into a context, the research is showing that at the rate that technology has grown, has changed, and the rate that education has changed, if from 25 or 30 years ago, if you want to still get a 3-year degree to keep up at the rate of technology, you'd need to be able to do that 3-year degree in 6 months. It's not possible, but in order to keep up at the rate of technology. So that would never be possible. It's just, you can't consume 3 years of content in 6 months. But to keep up with the change in technology, that's the kind of speed, which is why this whole shift people are talking about is, well, what is the shift and how does the shift work? Okay, so this is digital transformation. And in your areas and what you're doing, where you're playing in this agricultural space, there is a huge need for digital transformation. But it's a scary thing, because what if it takes jobs away? It will. What if it causes disruption? It will. What if it hurts people? Yeah, it might. Some people are always going to feel the pain of, especially the early adopters. But if you don't do it, then the easiest analogy I can make is people who don't start adapting to digital change are like the people in the early 90s who refused to accept email. In the early 90s, email never going to happen. Why do I need email? Blah, they didn't adopt it, and it was forced on them by 1998, 1999, it was forced onto them. So it's very important that you consider this digital shift that's here and engaging with our lives. Okay, now, these are the key areas where the process of change is impacting, I believe, at the moment. So if you take your entire end-to-end process, these are the kind of the 4 areas where the process for change needs to be reviewed. First one is recruitment. So I was talking to someone the other day, they're like, we're talking about jobs, and do I know recruitment agents? And in the conversation, someone said, well, why do we go to recruitment agents anymore? People just go to LinkedIn. Now that's very interesting, because recruitment in LinkedIn is for a certain target market. So the recruitment agents and how you recruit needs to shift. And I'll give you an example. Many kids at the age of about 15, 16 have digital devices. They exist. They've got them. They're using WhatsApp. They're using the scenario. So your recruitment strategy needs to shift, because those are your apprentices. Your 16, 17-year-olds are your apprentices. They're the guys that we need to start getting in to helping us shift the process that we're looking for. So how does your recruitment strategy rely on certificates or apprenticeship, and how do we start accessing those discussions prior to the time they have a certificate or qualification? Performance management, such an interesting topic, because performance management is people managing performance, and that could look at once a quarter, maybe once every half year, maybe once a year. But if I'm looking at a laborer or someone out in the field that's actually making money, how does performance management happen there? The whole thing has to be overhauled. We have to relook at a way of that we can work with these people, these laborers, and the people that are kind of like at the bottom end of the hierarchy in the corporate structure, because there's so many more of them. And how do we toss the current performance management process, shift it so that the people can engage in what they're doing, and their performance management can make sense to them. Job mapping, it's changing all the time. And if we're relying on HR to help us map our jobs, we're dead in the water, because HR doesn't have enough time at the moment to pay salaries. Now it comes down to job mapping. We need to use our laborer and our workforce and our supervisors and managers and the people on the main floor. We need to use them to help us change the jobs that are on the main floor, because they're the ones who are looking for the recruitment. They know what's going on, but by the time HR has changed and re-job mapped and done everything that's needed for the job, that job has changed, or components of it. So job mapping needs to become competency driven rather than task driven. And I'll talk about 3 or 4 competencies right after the slide. And the last big process of change is learning and development. How does learning happen? Because if you're relying on people to join this kind of a presentation we're doing for their learning, they're going for a certificate of some kind. By the time they get the certificates, it's out of date. Learning needs to be this kind of concept of dirty learning. They achieve the 10-minute video as they need it, with an assessment as it's done quickly, so that they can impact the job that they're doing. So as policies change, well done learner, policies changed, update your knowledge, let's keep going from there. The job has changed because the team has put in a new competency. The job people in the job can review themselves against the policy, quick learning, quick turnarounds, quick successes. But it's shifting the mindset away from certification into competency-driven learning initiatives. And that's kind of the key driver, I believe, which is very, very important. So, yeah, these are the top 4 skills that this comes from some research in the agricultural space. For the next 5 to 10 years, skills is interesting, it's probably more competencies. So the first big competency required is adaptability. And that's the ability to change what you're doing in your industry very quickly. So whether it be engineering, whether it be process development, whether it be builds, like machine builds, The adaptability is changing super fast. I mean, Africa has seen up the North Africa has seen the worst pests, locusts, and hitting the crops that we've seen in years. What are we doing to adapt what we're doing? Because clearly those pesticides aren't working anymore, and more pesticides aren't going to help. There's a huge adaptability that needs to happen there quickly in order to save the crops. In Africa, here in South Africa, some friends of ours, it's their 4th year that they haven't seen a great potato yield. Why? What's going on? The only thing that's changed is nothing, but potatoes aren't yielding as they have in the past. What's going on for that adaptability, and how do we adapt according to it? So that's very, very important. And if you want to measure it, you need to define what adaptability looks like and what would someone physically do in order to measure their adaptability. And if you've defined those, you'll be able to measure people on their ability to adapt. Psychometric assessments are great, but they don't show you the ability to do it. They say that you have the opportunity, or you could show great adaptability, but can you actually adapt into your specific environment? You need more than just a psychometric. You need a demonstration of skill. Interpersonal skills. It is key. It is vital. That is your ability to engage with other people in other levels. The hierarchy of business has to crumble. It needs to become more flat, because the hierarchy of business is what's causing all the bottom level people of the business to be retrenched and job cuts. But they still rely on these people. So as this becomes job cuts, these people become business owners, which then elevates them into this level. And now you speak business owner to CEO, and you've got a new interpersonal skill. So are the laborers able to engage at CEO level? Because they're going to have to be in the future, because they become the business owners that the CEOs use and procurement departments use and people use in order to purchase what they want from. Now, interpersonal skills, there's so many of these, new venture creation and all these programs out there that aren't showing good value, because what it is just a qualification that spits someone out at the end, says, well done, you now can run a company, have a company, but there's no real continuation in terms of pulling the person up to speak CEO to CEO. Okay, time management and organization skills, I think kind of speaks for itself, in that timing is of the essence, and if you don't get things done on time, in cost and in budget, things fall apart. Now, organizational skills is not about running a business, it's about organizing your time to deliver. And there's just no time in the day. A lot of people that I'm speaking to at the moment are turning around going, I'm running out of energy. I'll wake up ready in the morning. By 12 o'clock, I'm totally wasted. I'm so tired. And that is because 2020 has been a year of shifting the way we do things, and we are not ready to do things as digitally as we are. The stress of this whole COVID-19 on us is unprecedented, and we are not trained on how to use it. So what I mean by that is people who go on training for 5 days often come off hugely exhausted, but they've only done 5 or 6 hours of engagement, but they're using their minds in different ways that they're not used to using it. So they can work 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day without a problem. But as soon as they're on training, they fall down because they're not used to that, using that part of their minds. And this is where the time management organizational skills becomes vital, because if you understand that, you can manage your time differently. And points 4 and 5 is tech savvy. We need to start teaching people how to use tech. Now, not all tech is easy. A lot of it's necessary, but not easy to use. And so there's this huge kind of breakdown around, I need to use it, I don't know how to use it, so I'll fall back to what I do know how to do. And that's the problem that we have. So where we're sitting at the moment is a very interesting scenario where we do a lot of digital onboarding, but that's not enough. So we have a call center and we have WhatsApp group support and we have other supports in place. So the digital onboarding is all good, but there's continued handholding over the year or over the 2 years or over the workplace or over the engagement. That makes it very, very valuable. So these are the 4 top skills that have been brought up in the agricultural space from a lot of research over the past couple of years. So what should you do now? And my last slide, and this is what I recommend you do. 1, embrace technology and analytics. Try to figure it out, take the pain right now, work in groups, and get the technology that you need to do what you need to do. Understand how the company succeeds. So the companies that you work for, the companies that you're providing services to, how do they succeed? When Ray Kroc took over McDonald's, there was a defining moment in this time where he met some guy, and the guy said to Ray Kroc, who was McDonald's and burgers, saying, "You don't know what your business is." And he said, "No, my business is burgers." And he's like, "No, that's not your business. That is a subset of your business. Your business is agriculture and property owner." And he had to shift his mindset of business. And when he understood that, he could take McDonald's into a chain that what it is today. Stay focused on your people. Technology is all good, but if your people can't use it, it's not going to work. Technology is only as good as the people who uses the technology. Be ready for the new workforce. It's not coming, it's here. The millennials are already 40 or 50% of our workforce. After millennials, we have 2 generations later, and right now we're sitting with what are called the alphas. The alphas are the first generation that, like people have tattoos, they will actually have technology into their bodies. They will replace their fingers with USB ports. They will replace their ears with they're actually going to replace body parts with technology. That is your current 5-year-olds. It's going to happen. It's not a case of if, it's going to happen when. They're already doing research about implanting a chip into your back of your mind over here that it becomes your cell phone. So you'll no longer need a phone. You can think it through. I can phone you from my brain, not from my phone. They're already experimenting with that kind of stuff. It's coming. Don't worry, it's only going to affect your industry around about the late 30s, mid to late 30s. Market and modern benefit packages. Consider different types of packages for your people. That's remuneration packages. Start asking what they need. 9 times out of 10, all they need is good food, good place to stay, good medical. And if you can remunerate them with that rather than money, it becomes interesting scenarios that we can look at. We've got some really good ideas and stuff in the background. Stay abreast of compliance issues. So compliance is consistently changing, and how does compliance impact your technology and what you're doing in your digital space and how it's working through. The very interesting scenario with that is we work with call centers, and in South Africa, the compliance I think is 5%. So they have to QA 5% of the phone calls that happen. What we did was we worked with them to get every call center agent onto the compliance requirements. So we train them up on how to listen to a call, and every morning every agent listens to 2 calls from the day before, random calls, and then they rate the calls, which means that it's actually quadrupled the compliance review of all the calls for the client, because they're now not only relying on the 10 people in the compliance department, they're using all 1,000 call center agents to listen to calls as well on the same criteria, and it's just a moderation space. That's a very smart way of using technology to assist. And be validated. Now, the big one about being validated is very interesting, because validation is like, oh, you have a certificate, you've been validated. But just because you have a certificate doesn't mean you can do it. It just means that you got a certificate, well done. Oh, you got a degree, well done. But can you do the work? What you want to start doing as companies is you want to start deciding what validation looks like. So if you can do this in our company, we would see not just a certificate, we'd see the following 10 actions, 5 actions, 3 competency. And then once you have that in place, people annually can validate how they're performing against those competencies, which keeps people valid. Now you can start tapping a market of uneducated, because they don't have certificates, but highly skilled labor force, because they can demonstrate against the validation, and you keep that loop going and going in your business. Okay, zoom. I hope any of that made sense. That's it for now. I guess, do we have time for questions, Bright?
Yes, with me, Darren, I'm used to your presentation. I don't know the audience, if there is anyone with a question, but with me, I'm fine, because this is I think it's the 3rd time attending your, your presentation. So with me, I'm already updated. I don't know the audience. I would like to hear from them.
Brett, I have a question. This is James.
Hey, James.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this presentation. It's very interesting. Could you kindly take us back to, there is a slide which talked about the impact of technology on gender. That one exactly. I took note that at the beginning, more women would be replaced by the technology. The impact would be more on the ladies compared to the men. But towards the later stage, the impact is heavy on the men compared to the lady. what drives that switch in the gender impact?
Good question. So I don't have research for my answer, but I do have a perspective. My perspective is this. At the moment, there seems to be a lot of gender inequality in the world. And a lot of gender inequality is that women get pushed down as men get promoted up. So in the first one, it's those clerical jobs, those process-driven jobs, the jobs that are going to fall off the bandwagon first, which is why you'll see in the first two waves, a lot of women will lose their jobs first. When we get to the third wave where there's autonomy, a lot of men are already positioned in your middle to upper management jobs, which is what the gender inequality has provided. And so what happens, those jobs are going to be starting to be replaced by the technology or the AI, which means there are factually more men in those jobs that would then start falling away. So the reality, my reality at least, or my understanding is, it's the number of women in the jobs versus men, and the level of jobs then are going to start shifting around. That'll be my perspective. James, does it answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. It does. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Cool.
Is there anyone else with a question? Let me just go to James. James has answered. What about Dr. Jacqueline? Do you have a question to Darren's presentation? Hello, Dr. Jacqueline? Oh, okay. She's unavailable. How about memory? Do you have a question? Oh, no question.
I'm fine. Yes, thank you.
Okay, that's great. What about memory? Do you have a question to Darren's presentation? Or maybe a compliment? We're listening. Okay, nothing. What about Petani? Do you have a question or maybe a compliment to Darren's presentation?
No questions.
No question at the moment. Oh, no, that's great. That's great. What about Pumuto? Any question?
I have any questions? I'd like to thank for such a wonderful presentation. We've learned. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks very much. What about Tapiwa? Do you have a question or maybe a compliment?
No, I don't have a question. Maybe I can just comment. The presentation took me back to all those sci-fi movies I used to watch. So what those AI applications, are they coming?
Yeah, so I think so. I think there's definitely a hybrid of that. So you go watch iRobot with Will Smith, for example, and you go watch some of those kind of, I definitely think that there's a hybrid to that coming. Yes.
Oh, that's great. So, Darren, can you help us with a link where the audience would like to get hold of you in future? So that you maybe sometimes you'll find that, because I've seen that a lot of people. I still remember that was last year. I was the one for the company that I was working for. I was the one who received the call. That was coming from Law Society of South Africa, and then they were requesting Darren to go and present there. And then the audience was 371, but they couldn't get hold of him. So I think this is the best moment where you can be able to share with them your details, so that in future, if they require your services, they can be able to call you.
Okay, so I've put my contact details in the chat room.
Okay.
For anyone who wants it. And then Bright, I'm really happy if they're welcome to use the presentation. They're welcome to have a look at it. I'll send it to you, Bright, and you can send them a version of the presentation. It's fine.
Okay. No, thank you so much, Darren. I'll really appreciate. Thank you so much for your time. I think everyone has said that they really appreciated your time, and there is no questions. I think we'll move to the next speaker.
Perfect.
Hello.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks very much, ma'am.
I would like to ask a question. You know, yesterday you said we should send our link to you.
Oh no, I think we'll talk. We'll talk regarding that. You sent your contact details, right?
Yes, I did, but there was a link you asked me to follow to reach you yesterday.
A link.
Yes.
I think you're
I
mistaken
couldn't.
because I always talk to you using my WhatsApp phone, right?
Okay. So
Okay,
I will
I'll
do
give
that.
you a call. I'll give you a call.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Sorry for that, Darren. Thank you so much for such a good presentation. And then I'll keep your numbers, Darren. Whenever we have got something, I'll always call you.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Cheers, everyone.
Okay, bye. I think the second the speaker after Darren, he said that is going to come at 1 o'clock. So what we can do for now, I think we need to go for lunch from 12 until 1, and then we're going to be back at 1 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.